Its intentions are to use that weapon for nuclear blackmail and then to, quote, reunify the peninsula under the red banner. So he would use this to extract payoffs, as the regime has done with their nuclear program in the past, and to drive the United States and our allies away from this peninsula that he would then try to dominate.
Well, that's President Trump's national security advisor, H.R. McMaster, on Fox News Sunday this morning. And he was not mincing words, as you heard, on North Korean dictator Kim Jong Un and what he may be up to by continuing to defy the United Nations Security Council and the world with those missile tests. You know, just last week, the rogue regime test-fired an intercontinental ballistic missile the U.S. officials say could hit the entire continental U.S. as far as Washington, D.C. So, as the Un dictator becomes bolder, what can we do to really rein him in? Joining us now is former U.S. Ambassador to Iraq and Turkey, James Jeffrey. Ambassador, welcome. I'm simply put, as H.R. McMaster said, it seemed that Kim Jong Un is trying to shake us down. I mean, it's extortion. Get out of South Korea, or I'll continue and have a nuclear weapon that can target you.
What McMaster said today is, without doubt, the most important thing any of your viewers will hear or see today, or most days. The reason is, most analysts here in Washington believe that the North Koreans were developing these nuclear weapons supposedly for defensive reasons, to keep us from attacking them as we attacked Iraq or brought down Gaddafi in 2011 in the Middle East. I never bought that theory. We tried to unify Korea in 1950 by going into the north. The Chinese intervened. We're not going to do anything like that again. What McMaster is saying is this is an offensive capability. He has a huge army. He has many ways to undercut South Korea and even threaten Japan. What keeps him at bay? The American deterrent military structure. But if he can strike the United States with nuclear weapons, even if we would destroy him in return, he feels we won't risk Seattle for the Korean capital of Seoul. That's the danger here, and this is an extraordinary danger at this point.
You call it an extraordinary danger. I mean, what does that mean? I mean, you've got the millions of people in Seoul, 28,500 U.S. troops in South Korea, and more others in Japan. I mean, what is the prospect of that?
Well, the problem is, if we tried to use military force against him now, as you said, it would be a horrific war, at least as bad as the 1950-53 war that took over 1 million casualties, and this time he could use nuclear weapons, at least in Korea or Japan, or we can simply let him dictate terms and eventually push us out of South Korea and Japan and essentially turn it over to China, because China can rein him in, but China does not want to, because China shares the same interest as North Korea of seeing the United States security guarantee in the Western Pacific over Taiwan, over Japan, over the South China Sea, and over South Korea go away. That's China's goal as well, and North Korea is serving it.
You have a great point there, and that is also being reinforced, sadly, at the United Nations. China and Russia, both basically, even though they've signed on to some of these resolutions, teaming up against us. I want to play you a soundbite of the Russian ambassador to the UN last Wednesday, basically blaming us. This guy is blaming us for the tensions because they want what Kim Jong Un wants. They want us to stop the joint military exercises with South Korea, as well as stop deploying those THAAD missiles that are there to protect South Korea. Here's what he said. Take a listen.
It is precisely this way that Pyongyang interprets the extreme military activity in the region, which takes the form of regular large-scale maneuvers and exercises by the United States and its allies, including sending strategic bombers, naval task forces, and aircraft carriers to the region. An additional destabilizing factor in the region is ramping up on the territory of the Republic of Korea of elements of the American anti-missile system, THAAD.
Well, you just heard it. I mean, what are the chances of us not conducting these military exercises? There's some starting this coming week. They want us to pare them back.
There's zero chance that we will give in to such outrageous threats. There's no sane person, including in Moscow or Beijing, who believes we have any intention of attacking North Korea to conquer the place. The only reason we would use military force is to get North Korea to stop its nuclear program. And we'll move closer and closer to that if China in particular, but also Russia, which has a border with North Korea, does not act to cut back oil and other strategic materials that is keeping the North Korean war machine going.
Yeah, and they're not showing any signs of doing that. Nikki Haley at that meeting indicated that 90% of the trade has been cut off with North Korea. She said 30% of the oil, one-third. You know, they're still getting two-thirds, and she also pointed out that in 2003, China did cut off the oil, and that brought North Korea to the negotiating table. So your predictions, Ambassador, do you think China will shut off the spigot, and will North Korea go to the negotiating table, or will they have a nuclear weapon?
The key thing is China, because North Korea has gone to the negotiating table 25 times in 25 years, and we never get anything. But focus on China. We need to do two things. First of all, McMaster has to back up his rhetoric with real military action. The Chinese have to believe we're serious about a possible military confrontation, or one could happen by accident. That means real steps, not flybys of airplanes. We need to reconsider the pullout of tactical nuclear weapons from Korea and from our naval vessels offshore.
So
that's
quickly,
the first thing.
Quickly, when you say military action, you know, what specifically do you mean by that?
Well, essentially making it clear that we would be willing to use tactical military weapons, tactical nuclear weapons, in even a conventional conflict, that we will fight for the peninsula. We haven't taken any new action to reinforce the rhetoric coming out of Washington, and thus the Chinese don't feel under pressure.
Well, the prospects are horrific. The Chinese have not stepped up to the plate completely. The president has called for them to do that, and this crisis continues. Ambassador Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, of course.